It's my most used bow exercise and what I start almost all of my lessons off with. I teach it early in book 1 and I never stop using it. It's ring the bell. Let's get to it. Let's talk about why this exercise is so useful. First of all, when I begin my practice, one of the first things that I'm trying to warm up is the feel. Ring the bell practice is what I would consider the most awkward position on the violin, which is getting a huge sound extended all the way to the tip. If I find the sweet spot here, meaning I'm finding the right angles with my violin, my bow, my posture, my shoulders, if I find the sweet spot here, I'm likely to have that sweet spot locked in for the rest of my practice. Now, not only do I need to find the correct position here, but I also have to manage to find a huge sound right at the tip. And this is warming up my arm weight engagement. So I'm turning a lot of weight into my index finger and engaging my arm weight in a relaxed way. And if I'm super stiff about it, I'm likely to get a skate sound like that. And so it also forces me to have sort of a relaxed hand so I can grip the string and get a clean bite. Once I release the note, there's even more benefit. I get to sort of wake up my nervous system by moving the bow very, very quickly. And I also have to move the bow past the frog. So not only do I get this really nice feeling of what it's like to be in a controlled position at the tip, but I also get this really nice feeling of what it's like to go beyond the frog, which is probably going to force me to curl my pinky. And it's also going to open up this motion of my arm. Particularly with young students, they're always a little bit timid to get to the frog. If they do really good ring the bells at the start of their practice, their arm is already used to going beyond the frog. And so hopefully they have their whole range of motion ingrained in them. They can get a powerful sound at the tip, and they can also have a relaxed hand at the frog. The other thing I want to harp on when it comes to the strength of this exercise is that it works on possibly the most difficult sound to get on the violin, which is a clear, big sound at the tip. This is something that Kreutzer and Rodet really fixate on in their etude books, the ability to get big, full sound at the tip. Now that you know why I love this exercise, let's get into the nitty-gritty and also some of the things to think about while you're doing this exercise. For starters, it's critical that you're very mindful when you're working on this exercise. The very first repetition oftentimes takes a lot of setup before you begin. So I want to make sure that when I go to the tip, I have the ability for the bow to be completely straight with the bridge. And in fact, I like to go even a little bit beyond straight. So opening up my arm beyond the point of where it's straight with the bridge, because most young students typically are far too far this way. And so I want them in the opening of their practice to go beyond the point of comfortability so that throughout their practice, they're opening up. So we find that position where the bow can be a little bit beyond straight. And then I also want to make sure that my scroll is in the right position, meaning the scroll is as high as my nose. And also I want to rotate the violin to the sweet spot. The more centrally you rotate the violin, the easier it will be for this hand to reach the tip. This is an important point because when you're first trying to reach out this arm to go out in front of you, it's tempting to rotate the violin further away. And of course that changes the angle of the bridge, so you have to chase it further and further over, and then you get really tweaked. And so instead, what we want to think about is both hands coming in more central, and then it's easier to get to the ideal angle. Once we set the bow on the string, we should be almost at the extreme tip, maybe just a centimeter or so from the very top, and then we want to engage arm weight. And so we are turning our weight into the index finger to the point where our bow hairs should be basically touching the stick, depending on how stiff your stick is. Once that's touching, make sure your hand is as loose as it can be while still maintaining all of that weight. Then we're ready to go. When you start this exercise, be sure to not whip the bow too fast because you have a chance of going forward like this and nicking into the corner of your instrument. Instead, give it a big pop and slowly control the bow, trying to keep it straight with the bridge all the way through. I do like to go beyond the G string and have a slight roll with the bow, which will encourage the pinky to curl. This will really help with having a relaxed hand when we get to the frog. I make sure that my bow is beyond straight with the bridge, my scroll's in a nice position, I'm relaxed, my arm weight's engaged, then I'm ready to pop, slow control over the top. Set up again, I'm in the sweet spot, arm weight's in, I pop. This can be a tiring exercise, so it's very possible that the student will want to droop halfway through. Makes it very difficult though, there's just so much going on. You really want to get into a sweet spot and stay there. If the student does need a break, do it after you've completed a set on one string. Eventually you'll get into a flow where you've just found the sweet spot and you can continue on with a lot of speed. We're going to do this on each string, and the third finger is going to be down, which makes it ring even better with the open string that's below it. Moving on to A string, the only thing that really changes is the angle of the bow. You do want to be mindful that the elbow remains just a little bit below the hand at every string level. I recommend doing 10 on each string. Two special things to note as you go towards these lower strings. First of all, it will feel even a little bit more difficult to get the bow beyond straight, so really fixate on it, right? Moving things centrally, making sure that that bow hand is coming out in front of you and going beyond straight with the bridge. Using a mirror can be helpful when you're trying to figure this out. The other thing is that your contact point, the distance between the bridge versus the fingerboard, should shift closer to the fingerboard as you go towards the lower strings. That's because the tension on these lower strings is greater, so we want to move to a looser spot in the string. One final trick on Ring the Bell. If you're finding it difficult to grip the string and you're getting a lot of skate sound, I find it helpful to put a lot of weight in the bow to the point where I can actually pull the string back and forth without the bow skating. You see how that's happening? If I can do this, I'm probably engaged in the string enough, so when I release my Ring the Bell, there'll be a nice clean bite. This can be very helpful to prepare this way each time. If you're diligent about warming up with this exercise and you're smart about how you do it, I know it will benefit your playing. This is the last of the staple bow exercises that I have on my regular routine for my students. I like to get into a flow with these bow exercises so it takes very little time each day to complete them. If you complete all of these bow exercises daily, it covers all the main motions that your hand needs to be able to do on the violin. If you also want to get into a quick flow with all of these exercises, check out the play along video here.